Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I am grateful you are here with me today. So settle, relax for a moment, and let your imagination open up. Because today we are going to travel somewhere fascinating. We are going back more than 200 years. To a small island in the Mediterranean Sea. The air is warm. The hills are rocky and green. And in a simple stone house on this island, something is about to happen. Something that will change the world forever. Imagine a small island. A rocky island in the Mediterranean Sea. The island is called Corsica. It is not France. It is not Italy. It is somewhere in between. The year is 17. And on this island, in a simple stone house, a baby boy is born. His family is not poor, but they are not rich either. They are a noble family, but a noble family with very little money. His father is a lawyer. His mother is a strong and determined woman. She will need to be. Because this boy is going to need everything she has. His name is Napoleon Bonaparte. And the world has never seen anyone quite like him. When Napoleon was 9 years old, his father sent him to school in France. Not to a school near their home. To a military school far away on the mainland. Imagine being 9 years old. Imagine leaving your island, your mother, your family. Imagine arriving in a country where everyone speaks differently from you. Napoleon spoke French, but he spoke it with a Corsican accent, a thick foreign accent. The other boys noticed immediately. They called him the foreigner. They laughed at his accent. They mocked his name. They made his life difficult in the way that children sometimes do. But Napoleon did not cry. He did not beg them to stop. He did something else. He worked. He studied harder than anyone. He woke earlier than anyone. He practiced longer than anyone. And he became extraordinary at the one thing that mattered most in that school. Military mathematics. The science of angles and distances and forces. The science of where to place a cannon so it hits its target. The science that would one day make him the most feared military commander in Europe. If you enjoy learning English through stories like this, please subscribe to Timeless English. Every week we bring you a new story from history in slow, clear, simple English just for you. Let us travel now to France. Not the quiet France of farms and villages, but the France of revolution. The France of chaos and fear and extraordinary change. Is 1790. Napoleon is 20 years old. He is a junior officer in the French army. He is not famous. He is not important. He is just one young soldier among thousands. But in France, the world is turning upside down. The people of France have had enough. They have had enough of kings. They have had enough of a royal family that lives in palaces of gold while ordinary people starve. The revolution has begun. The king is overthrown. Then the king is executed. France becomes a republic. But the revolution does not bring peace. It brings terror. People are arrested. People are executed. The streets of Paris run with blood. France is at war with itself. And France is at war with the rest of Europe. Every king in Europe is afraid. If the French Revolution succeeds, if common people can overthrow their king, then every throne in Europe is in danger. So they send armies to stop France. And France needs soldiers who can fight. Napoleon Bonaparte is one of those soldiers. And he is very, very good at fighting. Napoleon's first great moment came in the city of Toulon. Toulon was a French port city, and it had been captured by British and Spanish forces. The French army was trying to take it back. They had been trying for months, and they were failing. Napoleon arrived as a junior artillery officer. He looked at the situation. He studied the ground. He studied the positions. He asked questions. And then he told the senior commanders something remarkable. He told them exactly where to place the cannons. He showed them on the map. He explained the mathematics. He said if we place the guns here and here and here, we will control the harbor. And if we control the harbor, the enemy ships must leave. And if the enemy ships leave, the city will fall. The commanders listened. They were not sure, but they tried his plan, and it worked. Toulon. The British and Spanish forces retreated, and suddenly everyone in the French army knew the name of the young Corsican artillery officer. Napoleon was 24 years old. He was promoted to general, the fastest promotion in French military history. Now the story moves to Italy. Let us travel there together. The year is 17. Napoleon is 26 years old. He has been given command of the French army in Italy. This is not a great honor. Not yet. Because the French army in Italy is in terrible condition. The soldiers are hungry. Their boots have holes in them. They have not been paid in months. Their weapons are old. Their supplies are almost gone. They are demoralized. They do not believe in anything anymore. And Napoleon stands before them. This small man. He is only 168 centimeters tall. In a world of soldiers, he is not physically impressive. But he opens his mouth, and he speaks. Soldiers, he says, you are hungry and poorly dressed. The government owes you much and can give you nothing. Your patience and your courage do you honor, but they give you neither advantages nor glory. I am going to lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. Rich provinces, great cities will be in your power. There you will find honor, glory, and riches. Soldiers of Italy, will you be lacking in courage or in steadiness? The soldiers roared. They had not eaten properly in weeks. Their uniforms were falling apart. But they believed this man. They believed him completely. And he did not disappoint them. In the Italian campaign, Napoleon fought 14 major battles. He won all of them. 14 battles. Zeroed. He moved his army faster than anyone thought possible. While other generals waited for supplies and reinforcements, Napoleon moved. He was always where the enemy did not expect him. He divided his forces. He confused his enemies. He attacked from unexpected directions. He used speed as a weapon. The Austrian army, one of the most powerful in Europe, was defeated again and again. City after city fell to the French. Napoleon was not just winning battles. He was changing the way war was fought. He was showing that a smaller force, if it moves fast enough and thinks clearly enough, can defeat a much larger one. He was 27 years old, and all of Europe was watching. Back in France, Napoleon was becoming more than a general. He was becoming a legend. The French people were exhausted by years of revolution and terror and war. They wanted stability. They wanted order. They wanted a strong leader. And here was this extraordinary young man. This brilliant general who had never lost a battle. In 1799, Napoleon staged a coup. He took control of the French government. He became the first consul of France, effectively the ruler of France. And then, in 1804, he went further. He made himself emperor. Not just a general, not just a president, an emperor. The ceremony was extraordinary. It was held in the great cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. The Pope himself came from Rome to perform the ceremony. But at the critical moment, when the Pope was about to place the crown on Napoleon's head, Napoleon took the crown. He took it from the Pope's hands, and he placed it on his own head himself. It was a deliberate act, a message to the entire world. I do not receive power from God. I do not receive power from the Church. I give it to myself. I earned it. Now Europe shook. An emperor in France. A man who had risen from nothing to rule the most powerful country in Europe. The kings and emperors of Europe formed alliances against him. Again and again. And again and again, Napoleon defeated them. The Battle of Austerlitz. Perhaps the greatest military victory in history. 1805. Napoleon against the combined armies of Austria and Russia. He was outnumbered. His enemies were confident. They thought they had him. They were wrong. Napoleon had planned everything. He deliberately made his right side appear weak. He wanted his enemies to attack there. He wanted them to move their forces to that side. Because while they were attacking his weak right, he would strike their center with everything he had. And it worked. His enemies fell for the trap completely. The French army broke through the center. The Austrian and Russian armies collapsed. In one day, Napoleon had defeated the two most powerful continental armies in Europe. After Austerlitz, 4 new countries came under French control. Napoleon placed his brothers on the thrones of various European kingdoms. The continent of Europe was reorganizing itself around one man. One small man from a rocky island who spoke French with a foreign accent. But here is where the story changes. Here is where Napoleon, the brilliant general, becomes Napoleon the man who could not stop. He had everything. He had France. He had most of Europe. He had power that no one since Julius Caesar had possessed. He could have stopped. He could have consolidated what he had. He could have ruled in peace. But he could not stop. He kept pushing. He kept reaching. He always needed more. And his enemies kept learning from him. The disaster in Russia. The year 18, Napoleon is 42 years old. He has been at war for almost 20 years. And he makes the greatest mistake of his life. He invades Russia. He assembles the largest army in European history, 600,000 soldiers. From France, from his allied kingdoms, from across his empire. He crosses into Russia in June. The Russian summer is hot. The soldiers march east, deeper and deeper into Russia, and the Russians retreat. They do not fight. They simply go back, further and further, burning their own crops as they go, burning their own villages, destroying anything the French army might use for food or shelter. Napoleon reaches Moscow in September. He expects a great battle. He expects the Russians to fight for their capital. They do not. The Russians simply leave Moscow. And then they burn it. Napoleon sits in a burning city, waiting for the Russian Tsar to surrender. The Tsar does not surrender. Napoleon waits a month. A whole month in a burned city, waiting for a peace that never comes. And then the Russian winter arrives. The Russian winter is not like any winter Napoleon has ever seen. The temperature drops to -30 degrees. The French soldiers begin to freeze. They have no proper winter clothing. They have almost no food. Napoleon orders the retreat. And the retreat from Moscow becomes one of the greatest catastrophes in military history. The soldiers march west through the snow, through the ice, through the killing cold. The Russians attack from all sides. Men fall and cannot get up. Men fall asleep and never wake. Men lose fingers and toes and feet to frostbite. Of the 600,000 soldiers who entered Russia, fewer than 100,000 return. 500,000 men gone. In one campaign, Napoleon had lost an entire generation of French soldiers. Europe saw what happened, and Europe attacked. Every country that Napoleon had defeated came back. Austria, Prussia, Russia, Britain. They coordinated. They learned from him. They attacked from multiple sides. Napoleon fought back. He was still brilliant. Even now, even with a smaller army, even with exhausted troops, he still won battles. But he could not win them all. There were too many enemies. There were too many fronts. In 1814, the Allied armies entered Paris. Napoleon abdicated. He gave up power. He was sent into exile to a small island called Elba off the coast of Italy. And Europe breathed again. But Napoleon could not stay still. He could not accept defeat. After 10 months on Elba, he escaped. He sailed back to France with a tiny force. Just 1,000 soldiers. The French king sent an army to stop him. The army marched toward Napoleon. Napoleon walked out alone to meet them. He opened his coat. He showed them his chest. And he said, "If any of you wishes to shoot his emperor, here I am." The soldiers looked at each other. And then they joined him. The king fled. Napoleon was back. This is the period known as the 100 Days. 100 days when Napoleon ruled France again. He immediately began preparing for war, because war was coming. All of Europe mobilized against him. And on June 18, 1815, the final battle was fought at a small village in Belgium, Waterloo. Napoleon against the Duke of Wellington and a Prussian army. The battle was close. For hours it could have gone either way. Wellington said later that it was the nearest run thing you ever saw in your life. But in the end, the Prussians arrived, fresh reinforcements, and Napoleon's army collapsed. It was over. This time there was no Elba. This time Napoleon was sent far away, to a tiny remote island in the South Atlantic Ocean, the island of St. Helena, 6,000 kilometers from Europe, surrounded by the sea. No escape possible. Napoleon spent the last 6 years of his life on St. Helena. He was 51 years old when he arrived. He was not well. The damp climate of the island did not suit him. He had stomach problems. He was gaining weight. He spent his days dictating his memoirs, telling his story, creating the legend of Napoleon as he wanted it to be remembered. He talked about his victories. He talked about his ideas. He talked about how he had wanted to unite Europe under French leadership. He talked and talked, because talking was all he had left. On May 5, 1821, Napoleon Bonaparte died. He was 51 years old. The cause of his death is still debated. Some say stomach cancer. Some say it was something else. But what is certain is that he died far from France, far from the battlefields where he had been magnificent, far from everything he had built, alone on a rock in the middle of the ocean. What did Napoleon leave behind? He left behind the Napoleonic Code, a system of laws that he wrote for France. Laws that said all men are equal before the law. Laws that protected individual rights. Laws that are still the foundation of legal systems in France, in Belgium, in Louisiana in America, in Quebec in Canada, in many countries across the world. He reorganized the French education system. He created the Bank of France. He built roads and bridges across Europe. He modernized governments. He spread the ideas of the French Revolution across the continent. The ideas of liberty, equality, the rights of citizens. He was a complicated man. He was a brilliant man. He brought order to France after years of chaos. He also brought war to all of Europe. He showed what one individual could achieve. He also showed how one individual's ambition can destroy everything they build. They say Napoleon was short. This is mostly a myth. He was 168 centimeters tall. That was average height for a French man of his time. The idea that he was very short came from British propaganda. British cartoonists drew him as tiny. The nickname Little Corporal was actually a term of affection his soldiers used. Not a comment on his height. But the image stuck. 200 years later we still talk about the Napoleon complex. The idea of a small man trying to compensate. It is not true. But it shows how powerful stories are. How a story repeated often enough becomes the truth, even when it is not. Napoleon once said something that I want to share with you. He said impossible is a word found only in the dictionary of fools. Think about that. The boy who was mocked for his accent in school. The foreigner. The outsider. He decided that the word impossible did not apply to him. And for a long time, for a brilliant and terrifying and extraordinary time, he was right. He was not right in the end. Nobody is right in the end. Everyone falls. Every empire ends. Every Napoleon finds his Waterloo. But in between the beginning and the end, what he did was simply extraordinary. And what does his story say to us today as we learn English? Napoleon spoke French with a foreign accent his entire life. He was mocked for it as a child. He was the outsider, the foreigner, and he became the ruler of France, and then the ruler of most of Europe. Your accent does not define you. Your background does not define you. The place you come from does not define you. What defines you is what you decide to do with what you have. Napoleon decided to be extraordinary. You have decided to learn English. That is also a form of courage. That is also a decision to be more than what you started as. Every word you learn, every story you understand, you are doing what Napoleon did when he studied harder than anyone in that school in France. You are deciding that the word impossible does not apply to you. Keep going, my friends. Keep studying. Keep learning. Your Austerlitz is coming. Thank you for listening to this story today. I hope it stayed with you. I hope it gave you something to think about. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like. And if you want more stories like this every week, please subscribe to Timeless English. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, and keep enjoying the beautiful journey of English.